Thanks for waiting here. First, I want to start off with thanking Carson Soucy for his time here in Vancouver. Very professional, really good person, family member. Played really well for us last year and helped us big time this year when we needed him as well. So I want to thank him for waiving his no trade to go to the New York Rangers. With that, I open up.
What can you tell us about the way the market developed today that ultimately led to a lack of movement from the organization?
Yeah, it definitely was an interesting market and some of the moves here. The biggest reason I felt that we didn't do any moves here today was that there was not a whole lot of market return on our players, unfortunately. That didn't really make sense for it.
Where do you feel your team is positioned at the moment, now looking down the stretch of the final 21 games and a push for a playoff spot now?
Yeah, it's an interesting part of the league this year with so many teams being part of the race here. It's going to be 21 games left, and every single one is going to be a playoff game. So it's just going to get harder and harder, and we're going to continue with the next game mentality here. Great to see some of the younger players getting an opportunity here to be part of this stretch run here as well. They earned it and deserve to be a part of this.
Patrik, what led to the decision to move on from Carson Soucy yesterday?
Well, a couple of things. The improvement here of some of our younger defensemen in DPD, Mancini coming on board, Kadratsev's play down in Abbotsford, Sawyer Minio coming in next year, and potentially Tom Willander here as well. So we felt the competition that we have created here was not a guarantee to have Carson in the lineup every day, and conversation with his agent over a couple of weeks led up to this decision for us yesterday.
How have you evaluated the players who have had 10 games now with Drew O'Connor, Philip Hedl, Marcus Pettersson? How do you evaluate their first 10 games here with the organization?
I think they started to fit in really well on and off the ice, starting to understand how Talk want to play and what their roles are. Continue to build chemistry. I do like the chemistry of Marcus and Tyler, heavy matchups and against the top lines, and I do like the speed with Sheedle and Drew O'Connor there.
You didn't do any selling today, neither did you do any buying. You seemed to go out of your way in the off season and heading into the season to put yourself in a position to accrue cap space and have a lot of space available for the deadline. Was there any consideration towards using that cap space that you had accrued?
Yeah, definitely. First, if we would have positioned ourselves a little bit better, that definitely would have made it easier. As I said, the market, I guess the market is always tough to read, but with so many teams still involved, you could see some of the players that got moved, the price were high. I also didn't want to give up some of our younger players that most of the teams were asking for. I didn't feel that we were in that position to give up the younger players that we have developed here now over the last couple of years that we're seeing with the big team here. So that's why I felt where we are, this group is capable to compete here with the help of Quinn Hughes and Demko coming back here too.
As you just noted, the prices around the league were quite high for a lot of the free agents, pending free agents or other players that you might have been looking to acquire. Why was the price not high enough for your pending free agents that maybe you would have been looking to move?
Yeah, good question. I think that's a question you might want to ask the other teams. I think it comes definitely leading up to today. My conversation with other teams made me aware that there might be a situation as we are here today that we didn't do any moves, and I made some players' agents aware of that this seems to be a market for some of the players, and you can also see that some of the players that we're dealt, they have certain playoff experience, and some of the players have performed well in bigger games, and I think that's what some of the teams are looking for.
Patrick, what is your plans now with Brock? Do you plan to still attempt to re-sign him?
We continue to talk here, and I have a great relationship with Brock's agent, so he's been informed for months where this might end up. Definitely not a surprise. I don't think for either one of us that Brock is still here. As I said late last night, I just informed him that this unfortunately seems to be where it's trending. I would imagine that Brock is extremely hungry to finish off strong here and prove that he is a good player in this league, and we'll continue to talk.
And you have been talking to Brock. I'm not sure if you have been talking to Pius Suter. He's obviously exceeded expectations and been a very handy player for you. Do you see him potentially as part of this team beyond this season?
The same thing there. You're right. Pius has been used in a lot of different positions and handled that Swiss Army knife really well for us, and is a respected player around our staff here, and he has expressed the interest of staying, and we'll see if we can figure out the way that both sides feel good about it.
Still on Brock, it sounds like, from what we had seen previously, it seemed like potentially there were some lesser players that maybe were able to get moved for a first-round pick. You talk about players that have done well in the playoffs, and Brock has been a playoff performer. Was there really no interest in him in that range, like a potential first-round pick and those kinds of?
If I told you what I was offered for Brock Besser, I think I would have to run out of here because you would not believe me.
Really? Yeah, okay. And we were told there was a late offer that you guys may have made to Brock's camp about a potential extension earlier today. Is that true at all?
We talked briefly last night, but again, like I was leading up to this, I had conversation with his agent and made him aware that this might happen, that he's still going to be here. And as of last night, and even this morning when I informed Talk about potential lineup, that's why the reason why he was out there skating, that there wasn't any deals there.
Patrick, we've seen you guys take picks like the one that you acquired yesterday for Carson Soucy and flip them into bigger deals. Was that the idea with the Soucy move, that you could package it for something else, or was it a standalone?
Yeah, I would say a standalone. I think for a third-round pick, and there was really nothing available there. I think there was some discussion from my end if there was a bigger package that makes sense for us moving forward to be part of that, but not for any rental players at this time.
As a general manager, what do you need to see out of this team over the last 21 games?
Well, I feel like both Rick and I have repeated ourselves with consistency, but I do think that this group is talented enough, and we've shown in different games against different opponents, good ones and bad ones, that we're capable of playing really good hockey. I do like that lately our underlying numbers are indicating we're playing the right way. No secret that goal scoring has been a challenge for us, but I think in terms of defending and in terms of the details that hopefully will pay off down the stretch here is coming along really well, and then hopefully we can be a little bit more creative and get some puck lucks too.
Not getting anything done today, would you say you're disappointed that you haven't been able to do something like today?
Disappointed. I think you guys know us. I don't think I use this day as a defining day of how you build a team. For us, it's a continuation from day one. I believe I can still make a trade tomorrow. If I do tomorrow, that player can't play in the playoffs, but I'm happy with the players we have. And again, like if there wasn't any market value, I think that's up to the other teams how they view our players.
And, you know, you guys want to build a contender here. You looked like you were maybe close to getting there last year. The season hasn't gone that well. How do you get yourself into contender status from here?
I think you always learn. Going through adversities, I think that's, you learn how different players react, reacting under pressure. Again, I think it's extremely hard to build up a team to a contender through free agency. We had to sign a lot of free agents this summer. We're in a little bit different position, I believe, moving forward here with more younger players coming in. I'm extremely happy to have DPD and Mancini in the lineup here tonight. In my time in this position and previous position, I would say to fully know what you have in a defenseman, you might need 200 games. So we might see some ups and downs even next year with some of the younger players. And I think it just continued to build there.
To follow on Patrick's question then, we have seen you, I remember last year after getting eliminated on the second round, you weren't happy. You started your year-end press conference with, you came here to build a Stanley Cup winner. Given where this team is with 21 games to go, how disappointing then would it be if you don't make the playoffs at all this year?
I think it's disappointed. You always want to make the playoffs. You always want to be playing those big games. That being said, we're sitting here as many other teams having 20 really important games. I think that's great. The other day, I know roster is one thing, but the other day I was informed that we had on a roster the fifth youngest team on the roster. With the trades we did leading up to here, for different reasons too. We handle some of the adversities. That's my point. I think you learn through adversity what you have in certain individuals, and if you can continue to build on that. I do think that some of the players felt the pressure of expectations going up in this market. But again, I think that's something we got to learn how to handle as a group and as a team, and we'll I guess we more evaluate this season once it's over.
You touched on it briefly a moment ago, but and I think everybody in this room would acknowledge it's been a strange year for a lot of reasons. But since Christmas, you are one of the lowest scoring teams in the National Hockey League. Do you think you can get from here to the playoffs scoring at the rate that you guys have?
Well, I would say from the same time, I believe we're one of the strongest defensive team since December, right? And are we number one in PK? So I think there is some good things, but scoring goals is the hardest thing in the league, and it doesn't get easier. Is it going to be hard to win 2-1 every night and get into the playoffs? Probably will be. That being said, I do think we have players that are capable of scoring goals here. But again, finding the consistency and the chemistry or power play could be better. That being said, Quinn Hughes is a big part of the offense, and having him not in the lineup definitely hurt us as well here.
Patrik, obviously, Besser and Suter are key guys for your team now as you try to make the playoffs. For the offers that other teams were giving you, were you looking for, if you were going to pull something, that you wanted players back who could play now to help get you in the playoffs? Was that, you say that was a stumbling block?
I think we were, as I said, the market value, which means that we're either draft capital or younger players that potentially can help us down the road. I wasn't necessarily looking to add an older player just to get into this year's playoff. I think it was a bigger picture for us here.
At the same time, though, I think the ownership wants to get into the playoffs, and the fact that you guys are on that bubble, is that something you had to keep in mind, that, we're not going to pull the chute by any stretch here?
I again, as I said, I think every team wants to get into playoff, and credit to the league, the parity of the league this year. I don't remember seeing so many teams that are in it, and I think based on the discussions leading up to that with other teams and what was available, and even some of the teams, mentioned here that depending on how the outcome of the game is going to be Wednesday night, that might change our direction Thursday, and sure it did. And some of the outcomes of the games last night definitely changed it this morning. The ownership has, in my awareness, and I'm reporting to Jim Rutherford, the ownership has been very supportive to our hockey decisions that we want to make.
Patrick, you mentioned Quinn a couple of times. What can you tell us? I know we skated an hour before practice today. Is there a timeline for when he might be able to play again?
I think with Quinn, he would probably like to play tonight, then play Wednesday as well. I think at this time it seems to be nagging on a little bit. I do believe that he had the latest not setback, but it appeared to be a different injury in the game. Was it in Seattle, I believe, that hold him out here now?
So no timeline on when he might?
I thought it was a game time decision today, to be honest, and I would say day to day, but I would imagine that he's going to be back sometimes this week, hopefully.
And Demko, when might he practice with the team again?
I was told that he had a scheduled day off today, so I don't know if he will join the team. I haven't got the real update. I don't know if he joined the team tomorrow or I would hope within the next couple of days, I think.
Talked about how you can learn from adversity or things going wrong. Is one of the things you might learn from this deadline how to better create a market for your players? Is there a way you can talk about your players or sell them to a certain extent to other teams to increase what they might offer you?
You guys do that really well. I think nowadays you got so many resources. I mean, you got the analytics, you got scouts. Like in the end of the day, it's easy. The players' performance dictate the outcome of their situation.
I mean, you look at a bunch of stuff to try to help make the team better. But specifically, we wanted to look at the two areas, and one was on the blue line, specifically on the right side, if we could upgrade ourselves there with some experience and sort of with a profile, with a defending D, somebody that can help on the PK. Obviously, with Tanny out the last week or so, I wanted to make sure that we had that type of profile and try to spread those minutes out around a little bit more. I think the D's done a real good job this year, so I wanted to try to give a little help there with some experience, and then center ice position, and give us some depth there. And I think both players do. Before I talk about the new players, it's important, first off, to thank Connor Timmins, Connor Dewar, Fraser Minton, and Nikita Grabenkin. Obviously, both Connors had been with the NHL team more than the young guys. And that's the tough part about today is you have to, in some cases, say goodbye to real good people. All four were great Leafs. The two kids, Nikita, I think he sort of captured his personality, captured everybody there. I said to him, more back check and there'll be a greater paycheck. And then Fraser, you can't say enough about Fraser. He's just a wonderful, wonderful young man. So to get good players, you got to give good players. So we're certainly happy with the additions of Scott and Brandon, and wish Connor, the two Connors and Fraser and Nikita all the best.
When did you first start zeroing in on Brandon, and how difficult was it getting him from a division rival?
Yeah, Luke, it's a good question. When did we start zeroing him? He's been on our radar for a long time. You don't know when players are going to become available. Donnie and I had talked for a while. Donnie made a decision that he was going to go in a certain direction. As far as the rival thing, that's why Donnie's a good GM. I think he and one of the best GMs in the league, and why he's had so much success is, he's going to try to find the best deal for him. And so we were able to find a deal. But it's just the profile of him. He's big, he's long, great stick, defends the blue paint really well, excellent on the penalty kill, tremendous character. I'm talking both to him and Donnie today. He's been a big part of the success that's gone on in Boston, and they've had a lot of it. But he's been on our radar for a long, long time.
Is there salary being retained in that deal?
Yeah, there is. There's salary retained in both.
Can you tell us how much?
I've been up for a long time, so 50% in the Lawton deal and 15% in the Carlo deal.
It's been pretty crazy in 24 hours here. How would you describe this trade deadline for you?
I think it was, business as usual. I think it's busy. Deadline day is always busy, right? Deadlines force decisions in some cases. But I thought it was a busy day. You saw lots of activity in the league. I think when we talked last, just trying to find who was going to be available, right? We still got lots of teams in the race. So it was, it was a difficult trying to decipher who may become available. I think it went down the last few days for some teams making decisions on which way they were going to go. But like every, you have to do your work ahead of time, and but credit to the staff. Staff did a good. We were prepared, and executed the plan.
When Florida and Tampa make the deals that they make, does that put added pressure on you, or is you sort of stay the course there?
Well, if you're aware of what's going on in the neighborhood, right? So you're aware of that, but you got to be careful of just reacting, right? I know I talked about it the other day. You're trying to make your team better. Yeah, we want to get as many good players as we possibly can, but you got to be careful of just saying one team did this and now you got to do that. You're aware of what's going obviously around the league and in your division, conference, and all those things, but ultimately the job is to do what's best for you. Address areas that you need to address within your team setup, cap wise, roster wise, all those types of things. And then there's all sorts of variables that come into play, in terms of trade protection and all that sort of stuff. So you try to navigate that. Long way of saying you pay attention to the league, but you're focused, and you got to be real focused on and be disciplined on executing the plan that we set out really back in January when you have your meetings and you talk to your scouts regularly and you follow the team, and Chief and I speak daily, and that was what we tried to do today.
Given what you gave up, how important was term in getting the guys that you got that you kind of can game plan for beyond the season in terms of what you have?
Yeah, I mean, our situation, there was a lot of, and I've said it before, there's times to do everything, right? In terms of rentals. But again, you got to be careful of what's going out the door for potentially short term. So our focus, you know, we were around the rental market to see what was going on. But like I said before, I was, as a group, we were focused on seeing if there's players that we can get for term. And, you know, the retention piece is important. It costs, right?
Yeah.
And so you take all that into consideration, but certainly finding players that were going to be here beyond this year was, you know, something that we attempted to do.
Expect both guys in the lineup tomorrow night?
That's the expectation.
Yeah.
Weather looks okay. So travel, touring, but yeah, both were excited and both will be in tonight.
What's the plan for Reeves? Is he actually going to play for the Marlies or what's?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Ryan, you know, that was a difficult conversation. Ryan's a true pro, and I don't, you know, this isn't goodbye, right? Ryan's still a big part of our locker room. He's part of the team. Those are hard conversations. Good man. So, you know, he's been assigned to the Marlies today. I'm going to speak with him later today. Him and I will get caught up, but you know, we'll keep him going here. And you know, my hope is we can get him back here sooner rather than later. But you know, obviously you got to work within the guidelines there. But it's glad that Ryan didn't go anywhere today.
Scott's character seems to be such a big part of who he is in his game. How important was it to you to?
Yeah, I mean, Josh, you look at all that. That is a piece of it. You know, you're looking for real good players, but I always find that good character people tend to follow success, and success follows them. And listen, I've been watching Scotty Lawton since he was in Oshawa, and you know, he's been a captain wherever he goes. You look and see some of the things being said about him in Philly today, leaving. Just a character guy. And I can tell you, as hard as it was for him, he's been a Flyer his whole life. He was emotional talking about coming home playing for the Leafs. So he's excited. I know that was a really important chapter in his life in Philly, but he's excited to start one here.
Were you surprised with how high the prices seem to be for buyers this year?
Yeah, right. What's the old supply and demand, right? Yeah, I mean, when there's not much, you can charge more, and that seemed to be the case here. And you're navigating it, and but certainly that was the sense coming in today. You know, we always like to try to get things done as early as you can, and was hoping that the blue light specials would come on. They didn't come on as quick as I'd hoped, but no, hey, that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with managers that are really good at their jobs, and you know, everybody's trying to do the best for their team. So, but there was, you know, I think the market dictates, and supply and demand, and you saw some sellers, teams that were selling, get good returns.
Despite the high prices, how significant was it that you were able to keep Easton Cowan in the organization?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, Easton, Fraser, you know, you want to keep all your players, but at the end of the day, sometimes you have to make tough decisions. So you know, I put it two ways. You know, it's my job to look at everything, you know, and nothing is ever off the table, but certainly we think Easton's a terrific young player. It would have to have a significant impact for us, but you know, that's the job. Our job is to make this team, you know, better every time that we can. And but glad today that Easton's part of it and still with us. And like I said, I didn't, you know, I figured that was going to be the case, barring something unforeseen.
Imagine there was some interest in Matthew Nyes. What has he shown you this season to make him?
Well, Matthew's still a young player, right? We forget second full season, right? Yeah. Those players that come at the end of their college career and play, you always feel like they've been around usually a couple of years longer than they have. So he's just maturing into his body. His game's maturing. I think Matthew's just realizing how big and strong he is, and you know, he's getting more comfortable. You know, we sort of growing right in front of our eyes. So you know, he's a big part of our team now. Will continue to be moving forward. And he's a unique player. You know, that's a big, strong man at 22 years old, and you know, developing different parts of his game. You see what he's done in the power play from that front. You know, developing an edge to his game. You know, added the element the other night into his game. So, you know, you can see a power forward developing right in front of us. Okay. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for hanging out.
I think with our two goalies, you know, probably the last stretch hasn't been their best, and that's probably why there's a lot of attention. But I try to look at things over like the bigger sample, and I think so. If you break it up, we had a slow start to our season, our team included. And I think our goalies didn't get out of the gate strong, and then from November until probably the end of January, I thought our goaltending was really solid. I thought it was, and ever since then, it hasn't been as good. So understandable, but I do think that last night's a pretty good reference point. I think that's what we can see. I thought Stu made a lot of saves for us, and you know, it's an important position. Absolutely, we're trying to not put so much pressure on them so that they have to save games for us. And I think we did a good job of that as a team for those stretch of months when our goaltending performed well. I think our team did a good job. I think our team game has escaped us a bit over the last probably 5-6 weeks, and as a result, it puts more pressure on your goalies. So I'd like to see both things have a little bit of an uptick, the goalies' performance, both goalies as well as our team, and not putting them in the position to have to save games for us. So, you know, I guess that's my quick assessment on where we're at with the goalies.
Moving salary out in this league is a difficult thing to do. Can you kind of talk about the added difficulty of trying to do that with the various no movement clauses throughout the roster?
Yeah, I guess that's true that it can be challenging to move money in today's game. You know, we have a lot of players that really haven't been as consistent as we'd like. So I guess when you look at the performance of our team, then questions start being asked as far as should you move that player, should you not move that player. I don't know if that was as much of a factor as just our overall team performance wasn't that strong. So I think sometimes more gets made of that than is needed as far as their trade protections. You know, that wasn't a huge factor this week for us.
It was a deadline day where there were a lot of splashes. There were some big names bouncing around. Some came out west here. I wonder what your approach was, Stan. Did you take some big swings at potential splashes, or did you feel like the more conservative approach was the way you were going to have to go?
We talked about a lot of things. I mean, a number of things even today that just didn't really get all the way to the finish line. But yeah, I would say that's probably the norm around the league. If you knew everything that might have happened, you'd be surprised. But you know, when you add it all up, we didn't make any additional moves other than, you know, the ones that have been announced. There was no added moves today. So not for lack of trying. I think you know, you're trying to balance a couple things with at this time of year. My experience tells you that sometimes you need to improve areas of your team that have shown over 60 games aren't strong enough. Other times you can upset the mixture you have if you bring in 7 or 8 new players. You know, I've done that before, and I've found you only have 20 games left. So if you have to incorporate a lot of new players, it can be challenging. So I think we struck the right balance this year as far as the number of new players and where they play. You know, in particular, you know, I think Wallman's a really big upgrade for our group. He's somebody that we've talked about going back to the middle of the year as a big target. And, you know, I've been Mike Greer's probably tired of talking to me about him because I've been told a long time that he wouldn't trade him. Not going to trade him. You know, he's got another year. I don't have to trade him. We just kind of stuck with it. And then the other day when we pitched it to him, I think we got his attention, and we eventually got it, to where he came in. So I think that's a big piece that we're excited about. And then, we talked about the desire for our team to have a bit of a different look. I think if you looked at our team as it was before this week, we have a lot of players that are similar up front. They're kind of different versions of the same player. They have different attributes, but for the most part, they're not like Frederick or Jones. Those guys have a much different skill set, and I think it's something that we've been lacking. And as a result, it was an important piece for us to address that. And so we're looking back now on the moves we made, and I'm really excited. I think our staff did a great job. I got to commend them. Put in a lot of long hours with different ideas to get us to where we are today, and I think we're looking really good.
We've seen Chris Knobloch audition numerous players next to Leon Draisaitl on that second line, Arvidsson, Skinner, Podkolzin. There have been a kind of a revolving door there. What is your analysis of what's available there to you? And when you look at what you've got on your roster here, do you feel like there's something there that still has a chance to stick?
Yeah, it's funny because I do get this question a fair amount too about, Leon's probably the MVP of the league this year, right? And he's going to lead the league in goals, and he's pretty close in points. So, he seems to do it with whoever he plays with. So I think that's a testament to the season that he's having, that he's not relying on just one line mate. He's had a number of different players there. You're right. So who's it going to be going forward? I'm not quite sure yet. I think that we have different options, and I think that's something that's going to, I guess, unfold over the coming 20 games. You're right. I think Podkolzin and Arvidsson have probably spent the most time with him, if you look at the numbers. And maybe that's the way it'll be. And if not, we have some other guys that might get a look there too. We have a few new players. I think when Frederick gets in the lineup, we've got to decide if we're going to use him at center or on the wing. Because I think if we're going to play him on the wing, he could play on the top two lines, or if we're going to use him in the middle, he's probably on the third line. So that's a couple weeks away until we're going to know that. But and then Jones had a really good night last night, I thought. Where will he end up? I don't really know that either. But even Kapanen's played a bit with Leon, and Cappy's been great at center the last stretch too. So I think that we do have a lot of options. Now it's for the coaches to figure out which ones are going to lead us to the most success as a team.
And sorry, Matty, just real quick, is that something that you looked at addressing today? Like, did you nibble around trying to find someone for that spot potentially?
I don't know if it was just a spot for Leon per se. We were looking, we were looking at, can we bring anyone else in that would complement this group? And we tried, but it just wasn't a fit.
Hey, Stan. Sorry, Manny. Just want to ask you about the West was always going to be hard to get out of, and then you saw what happened in the Central with Rantanen coming in here. And just a thought on that, on the arms race, maybe in the Central Division, the fact that it almost makes trying to win the division even more important than having to go through some of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, my experience is that no matter where you are in the top 8, you're going to play a good team in the first round. It's just the way it is. If you win the division, the wild card team is going to be a really strong team. So no question about it, some teams improved quite a bit now, at least on paper. Now the question is, how does it all come together, with the group they already have? Time will tell. I mean, not every team that looks great now, if we talk in 2 months, is going to look great. Like, sometimes things just don't work. So that's why we play the games. I think if you try to worry about your opponents too much, then you lose sight of what matters. And we've got to do what we do well. And if we play our game well and we play it to the best of our ability, we're a really strong team. And I think we're a stronger team than we were for that stretch when we were one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the league. So I think we need to get the group that we had here playing back to that level. And then when you add in these new pieces and they integrate, I'm very hopeful and optimistic with the group.
And we all saw the statement on Kane. I was just, what kind of player do you expect to get back, or will he be able to play with you in the playoffs? And what kind of player do you expect to get if he is back in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think a healthy Evander Kane is such a. I'm trying to think of how many guys are like him in the league. There's probably a handful that can play like him with his size, his scoring ability, his intensity, his physicality, intimidation. Pretty small list of guys when he's back healthy playing at that level. So without a doubt, we want to get him there. And I think the biggest thing is when he's able to play at that level and he's fully healed, he's ready. So I do expect him to be back at some point. We don't exactly know when that will be. It's not going to be in the regular season. Will it be at the start of the playoffs? I don't know. I think if we can play long enough, he will definitely be back playing for us this year. So, he's got a lot of elements that can be game changing. So, I think that's another attribute that we liked with Frederic and Jones is when you look with Evander, with Max Jones and Trent Frederic, those three players. That's a handful to handle in a playoff series, and I expect and I hope them to all be there making a difference.
Stan, you got a left shot defenseman in Wallman. Were you looking at a right shot defenseman? And Wallman's a puck mover. Were you looking at somebody who's bigger and has some snarl to play in the top six?
We're looking for good players, first and foremost. He's number one defenseman on their team, and they've had a tough year. But you look at the way he's performed, to be able to perform at that level on a team that's had it's been a struggle a bit for that team this year. I think it shows you how well he's played. So I love his skill set. I think he's got. He's a big guy. Maybe he's not super tall, but he's 6'1", almost 220 pounds. So he's strong and he can skate, makes plays, very competitive. He doesn't play a passive game. He's involved in the game. I think our forwards are going to enjoy playing with him, whether he's a left or a right. I think sometimes that gets overblown a little bit. I mean, Kulak's played a lot on the right this year, and he's done. I think Kulak's had his best year. He's been fantastic for us. So whether Wallman plays on the right or whether Kulak does, I think those are options for the coaches. But I think Jake's going to be a big part of this. So I think to add someone like that, he's a young guy still. He's got more years ahead of him on his contract. So, I think it's going to be a big, big upgrade for the D.
Two real good depth guys. We feel that kind of add to our group. They bring a lot of, sort of stiffness to the game. Both of them play hard. Good penalty killers, playoff experience. So, we had talked, you guys, we had talked a little ways back about, having the opportunity to get depth, and we feel that we got that in those two players.
Shen's Stanley Cup champion. He might be the only one on the roster. How important would that be?
Yeah, I talked to him today about that. Obviously he's been around the league. He knows what it takes to play at that time of year. He's had the experience of being in Tampa, winning twice. That now it's to him. If he has knowledge, we want to hear it. And to be around the guys and when things do get when the heat gets turned up at that time of year, he's one of those guys that can help calm the room and get us through those moments.
There's obviously familiarity, Scott. Where do you see him slotting in?
We'll figure that out. That all just happened, a couple hours ago. But he's going to play obviously a role with us on the penalty kill. How it kind of maps itself out here, we'll kind of see. I'm sure he'll end up probably starting on the fourth. Just how it all aligns, we'll kind of go day to day here. And but like you said, he's got the familiarity. He's been played in Winnipeg, started there, and knows a lot of these teammates, which really helps. We like the fact that he can come in and have a smooth transition. We're waiting to see.
Scott, can you kind of talk about the central landscape? A lot of moves made
Yeah.
by the top three teams.
Yeah. A little bit of an arms race going on. I think that sort of when one domino falls, others start to hit, and there's obviously some very, very big names going, and I think that like us, like a lot of teams in the Central, we feel like we all have good teams that have a chance to win, and they've made their moves. We've done stuff in different ways, and it'll come down to the playoffs. But all these teams, it'll be interesting this last stretch of the season, and then going into the playoffs. No, not yet. Not yet. No, not yet.
Did you let yourself get excited at all about the possibility of a player like Brock Nelson?
You're sitting there now. You're sort of moving lines around and looking at different people, and that was the thing. I mean, I got to sit in on most of the meetings there. We were in on all these conversations that were going on, and we're trying to give our best offer and those type of things. And it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, we like our group. We really do. And it didn't happen. It didn't materialize. But we like what we have. Like I mentioned, we got some real good depth here that can really help us.
Winning the Central was one of your biggest goals, but in light of what competition has done, Scott, does that goal become a little bit more magnified just to sort of ensure that you're path?
I don't think so, because we've talked about it in training camp. We talked about it, for the last couple of years, the importance of being the best in your division. We know we're extremely strong. We had a division before today, and it hasn't changed. Every time we win hockey games, Dallas, Minnesota, Colorado will keep winning. So it's just part of what goes on in the Central. Utah is still in there. So it's just a situation where we just take care of our business. We'll worry about everything else that happens. But, certainly to be in the best in the Central has been a goal since training camp.
Familiarity within the division, I'm sure, plays a role in the early rounds in the playoffs. But when you don't have any games against a team like Colorado, and you maybe find yourself facing them down the road, what's the challenge when they've basically remade their team?
They've been kind of remaking their team all year, really, since training camp. They had a huge rash of injuries, traded out both their goalies, made an early big trade. It just, that's what it's their business going over there. You're right, we won't see them for a while, and that'll make it all that much more interesting. Whoever we run into, whether that's it could be anybody, and we'll just let the rest of the season play out. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We still got some games to cover here, and we'll just let it happen.
Given the chemistry you had of the season, Scott, the fact that you didn't lose anybody on this roster, how does that resonate for you as a coaching staff?
Yeah, it certainly helps. I think that the players, even though they all say they've been through it, they're all worried a little bit, and they're looking to 3:00 today to see what happens, and that to have our same group, that's actually something that can be a transition. We've added pieces and just to make us stronger, and I think that kind of excites the guys.
What picture you painted, Scott, being in on the conversations as they happen today and being in on a lot of different players. Can you explain to us kind of what your role is there? Are you a consultant, or are you just along for the ride?
I'm an opinion guy. No, they just ask my opinion and what I like in a player, how would I use that player, how would he fit in, where would he fit in, those type of things.
And with Luke, too, he works out with Adam Oates also. Does that really help?
Works out with who?
With Oates' group.
I'm not. That has nothing.
Does that help in the familiarity, that he knows those guys?
Oh, well, whatever. I guess so. Yeah, this league, I don't think everybody knows everybody. Just the way they go about summer training, all the different stuff. I asked him that about. He said he does have a little bit of relationship with a few of the guys, and he's also been in our division there, kind of butting heads with us too along the way. So nice to have him on our team.
I know Adam's been a guy who really steps up when he feels the team needs to cool the temperature in the game, things like that. Adding guys like Tanev, I know it's only 20-some odd games left, but Tanev and Shen, how much does that help to add guys like that to maybe take some of that off the gap?
Yeah, and you throw Stan in there as well. And to get into, whether it's our division or whether you're, what kind of series you're in, games get heavy. And, we're starting to see them now throughout the league. There's a lot more real spirit in the games. And I think that having those guys, it allows our skilled guys to play. Thank you.
What your philosophy was leading into the day, and if you can say mission accomplished at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, we looked to strengthen the group, balance the group. We looked at all opportunities to be able to do that. So we had a plan going in, and we feel like we're a stronger team today, and we've balanced out the roster.
Did you
I think one of the things people are talking about, Steve, is you kind of struck at the core by trading Josh Norris. Did you feel like you had to maybe, I don't know if shockwave is the right word, or change the makeup a bit?
I don't think I didn't feel like I had to, Bruce. I think we were looking at, you always go into these opportunities, trade deadline or in the off season to look to, bolster, tweak, take a step with your group. I don't think there was anything that I needed to do to strike the core. That trade in particular with Dylan Cousins coming changes the dynamic a little bit at the center ice position, compared to Josh, and also allows us to go and acquire Fabian Zetterlund. And so that was the plan and the process all along. If we were able to do it, excuse me, it wasn't like I was feeling like I needed to do anything with the group, but opportunity for me to help support the group. They've taken the step. Credit to the players, the coaches, like they've taken the step, and we look at it as a staff, and the scouts did an amazing job of setting it up so where we had these opportunities to add to the group.
Just one last thing, Julian. Did you feel like you had to make this, playoff hockey's tough, and did you feel like you had to be a little harder to play against, and that's what you achieve with a guy like Cousins?
Well, because he's a big body. I mean, I think everybody's seen what he can do now as a player, and we're really excited about the upside as well. But he's a different player in that position. We're extremely excited about where he's at right now, and also within our environment, the potential of growth with him as well.
What was it that you saw though in Cousins that you preferred over Josh Norris?
Well, I think there's some factors on Cousins that we liked for sure. It's not like we don't like Josh Norris. Like Josh he's a great player and a great kid, and and you'll see he's a great teammate by the reaction of his players, and it's hard on me as well. But I still have a job to do to make sure that we can take steps with this group. But a bigger body down the middle of the ice with Dylan Cousins and the potential upside with him.
In Dylan Cousins and Fabian Zetterlund, you added guys who have shown that they can produce at 5-on-5. How much of that played into your plan today?
One of the key factors on my board as we were leading into the deadline, if we could help the 5-on-5 scoring. It was, we look at we have a good team. I think we have a very good team that's continually learned how to win. They've gone through, some ups and downs this year, but they continue to show that they're making progress. We've talked about 5-on-5 scoring, and those two players in particular should help in that regard.
Obviously, your job as GM is to make your team better every chance you get. But in Josh Norris, obviously, he had so many personal relationships with guys like Brady and Drake, and obviously they've been pretty emotional with us today. Of course, again, doing everything you can to make the team better. How much does the personal side play into thinking about making a move with Josh Norris?
Ultimately, it can't affect my decision, but it was really hard on me. Like, I love Josh Norris. I love him as a kid. I love him as a player. He's a great teammate, and so these are very difficult decisions. And sure, I take time to think about how it's going to affect the group, but in my position, I can't let that get in the way of trying to make our team better. That's really what it comes down to. But certainly, we're going to miss Josh. He's like I said, he's a joy to be around. He's a great kid and a good hockey player. But again, we feel like if I let those emotions get in the way of making these decisions, I'm not doing my job.
Maybe without the emotions, but how much in your mind does chemistry play a part in terms of a team dynamic and winning? Obviously trading Josh.
For sure, team dynamic. It's not, but we're also bringing in a very high character, player in Dylan Cousins, and so it's not. It'll be different, but I'm sure it won't take long for. The culture we're building here is exactly what you saw today. Our players care about each other. The manager cares about the players. The coaches, it's you may have noticed it's different here. And that's something to be proud of. Makes these days and these decisions harder, but I'd rather have that type of emotion on these types of days because we know the bond that is being built here, and that comes with winning too. So today, I think, as hard as it is on some of these days with emotions, I think it's a great sign for our organization. And you see our captain and his teammates, they care about each other. And you can't win consistently in this league and get to where we want to get to without that.
If you're able to, can you go into the timeline on how long you were thinking about making this Dylan Cousins trade? I think when you spoke with Jackson earlier, you had mentioned you had thought about it for a while.
Well, we always look at good players, and Dylan Cousins is a terrific young player, and we feel just entering into his prime as well. So, I think to answer the question, you're probably thinking about it all the time, not as specifically as we do come to trade deadline time, but yeah, it's again, you look at areas of improvement for your team, 5-on-5 scoring, certain things, a little more toughness. You talk about toughness in Dennis Gilbert's as well, in balancing out the defense. Jacob Bernard-Docker, another good player for us on the right side. Matt and Paolo, has played well. You look for those types of opportunities.
So like in the last week or in the last how many days, figure out when exactly this
on
was
Cousins
Yes.
specifically?
Yes.
Oh, I think it was probably longer than that when you kind of every manager's a little bit different on the timeline depending on how your team's doing. There's teams that struggle out of the gate and you have conversations about their players because they're maybe looking to make an early move. So this one's I think been brewing for a while.
Josh Norris was a top 6 center. Do you expect that Dylan will also be in that top 6 role?
I think that'll be up to up to Travis and how it all plays out, and up to his play as well. And Shane Pinto's taken another step as well. And so we have the benefit of depth through the middle, and it's an important position. And we feel good about having Dylan join that group.
Will they play tomorrow? Will they play tomorrow?
Dylan and Dennis are available for tomorrow. And we're just trying to see if we can get Fabian in on time.
Can you talk about Fabian as a player and what he will add to the team?
Well, he's a player that goes to the tough areas of the ice. He's a strong kid. He's hard on pucks. He can really shoot it as well. He's got a good motor on him, extremely fit, high character, low maintenance player. And at a really good age to come into our group. We could use another shooter up front. I think that he's a threat at 5-on-5, and as you see, not just in the regular season, but into playoff hockey, which we hope to be pushed to get into, is that area of the ice is important, especially defensively as well, but offensively you need to get to those areas, and he doesn't think twice about going there.
Wait, no. Sorry, when do you're not sure about Fabian stepping into the lineup. Do you envision that when's even going to get here?
Good question. Yeah, we're still working through that. Yeah.
When did that deal come to place? Because that one seemed like was that a very last minute decision on your part? How did that come?
Well, no, there's plenty of discussion in and around him, but to be specific, I think the deal came through Pooley about 27 seconds under the clock. Yeah, so 27 seconds, I think somebody had said. Yeah, so no, it wasn't like we just started talking about Fabian. We had talked about him and inquired about him earlier on, and we're finally able to work out a deal.
So looking at the big picture of today, you said you feel like you're a better team, which is obviously what the goal is, but how happy are you with some of these moves and how they came together, how you orchestrated it?
Well, it was a completely different deadline than it was last year, not just because of where we are as a group, but also just in our process. We had a good plan going in, and it's an inclusive room, with my pro scouts and my staff, and big thank you to them, because really it is hard to make. There's lots of trades that go on, but each one of them is challenging. So, but it was the process. I think is continuing to evolve with our group, but we were able to accomplish a lot of what we wanted to do.
digest what's happened today? I know last year a lot of the seeds were planted for Linus Ullmark to come in the summer. Do you feel like you had conversations that could lead to things that we see down the road?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I can't honestly. Right now, I can't even think of what they might be. We're happy with what we accomplished today, but yeah, certainly I think you learn a lot about your team as you go through this, and you learn a lot about other teams as well and the direction that they're looking to go.
How much do you value size and hitting capability, like Dylan Cousins, Zetterlund? Like now I think they're your second and third highest hitters on the team now. Like how much do you value that in a player?
I think it's an important component. I mean, along with many other things, but certainly I think if you have the willingness to go into those areas and, you know, the size and strength, it does make a difference. We look at all factors, but yeah, do I feel like we're a harder team to play against now? Yeah, I do. I mean, we're, you know, both Cousins and Zetterlund are hard on pucks. Gilbert's a big, strong guy. Yeah, I feel like I think we've taken a step.
When did you go from thinking this might be a quiet deadline to thinking like I might be able to make a couple of significant moves here? Was it this morning or in the last couple of days? Or
There's certainly, you know, there's some ebbs and flows to any one of these deadlines as the week goes on. Yesterday, to answer your question, probably early this morning. You know, I thought yesterday was an interesting day where we felt like we were in on some things, and those went away. And then this morning, it got going pretty quickly.
Question not related to the deadline, but what have you seen from Tim Souza that gives you confidence that he's ready to lead this team into a playoff spot and lead this team in the playoffs also?
Well, I think with Tim, but also with all of our players, like they've all taken a step in maturity. Their understanding of the responsibility away from the puck has really grown for all of them, including Tim. Like you can just see the determination on the other side of the puck. He's got world-class talent and skill, and when he has the puck, can make things happen. But I think the way he's getting the puck now and where he's going to get the puck and how he's defending has elevated his personal game is elevated, but also I think the whole team has. But he's certainly taken a step, and you can see the willingness to win. You know, like you really see it drawn out of these players now as they're getting more comfortable and more experienced in our league.
There was a report about Fabian Zetterlund and his agent talking about how contract discussions didn't really come to fruition in San Jose. Obviously, he's an RFA. Was that part of the calculus in terms of trying to sign him to a long-term deal after?
Haven't gotten there with him on that. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for your patience.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Bon après-midi tout le monde, bienvenue à cette conférence de presse des Canadiens. Good afternoon everyone and welcome to this Montreal Canadiens press conference. On va commencer comme à l'habitude avec une première ronde de questions. Si le calendrier le permet, on pourra suivre pour des follow-up. On débute avec Patrick, Eric et Anthony.
Bonjour Ken.
Bonjour Patrick.
Ça va bien?
Oui, toi?
Oui, est-ce que tu peux nous parler un peu de ton état d'esprit au cours de la journée, de la dernière semaine, à quel point, comme organisation, vous avez coché les cases dans vos objectifs et à quel point tu as peut-être passé proche de dévier de ton plan?
Je pense que c'est toujours... quand tu gagnes, c'est le fun. C'est sûr que le plan a toujours été, dès le début de cette saison, qu'est-ce qu'on fera aujourd'hui ou dans la semaine avant le trade deadline sera un sens dicté par l'équipe. Puis leur jeu, c'est sûr qu'en rentrant au repos, le congé de 4 nations, on était sur un down. Alors, on pensait que probablement on fera la même chose qu'on avait fait dans les années passées, puis on aurait échangé nos joueurs. Puis crédit à l'équipe, puis au coach, ils ont gagné 5 matchs de suite, puis ils ont reviré les choses. Puis on a gardé... j'avais promis aux joueurs au mois de septembre Tremblant que pour la première fois depuis que je suis à Montréal, qu'on n'avait pas un plan établi au début de saison et que leur jeu va avoir vont avoir leur mot à dire de qu'est-ce qu'on fait. Alors, rewarded them pour leur effort.
All right. And using that word reward, Kent, just how tempting would it have been to do something, not to necessarily deviate from your long-term plan, but to add a little bit more to this picture? And how tricky was it to navigate that desire against the reality that you guys are in, that you're not necessarily a Stanley Cup contender right now?
So when you say that, you like add, meaning to have added a player as opposed to...
Yeah, how tricky was not obscuring your long-term plan for the short term, given what your team has shown you, to give them that extra boost? You gave them a boost with Line A. You gave them a boost signing Evans and holding on to Arniel and Smart and Devo. Like how do you navigate that reality that as much as you want to help in the short term, the long term is still...
Yeah. Well, listen, we believe we're progressing, but we're far from sitting here today saying our work is done, that we've built a team that we believe can compete on a consistent basis, night in, night out, for season in, season out for a Stanley Cup. So, as long as we keep that in mind, Eric, it probably helps you resist the excitement or the emotion of a team getting on a 5-game run. So we looked at it. This was a seller's market this year. I mean, there's so many teams that are tight to the playoffs like us that did very little in terms of selling off. As a result, the prices were high, and so on the one end, when you have expiring contracts, there is that temptation to get great value. On the flip side, if you were a buyer, you knew you were paying a pretty steep price to get into something that might help around the edges. And quite frankly, this group of players have gotten the team to this point in the standings.
Anthony, Alexandre, Mackenzie et Stu.
Oh, Anthony,
bonjour,
ça va bien?
Ça va bien, vous?
Oui.
Un peu dans la même veine, Derek, et considérant surtout la récente blessure à Kirby Dach, le fait que Owen Beck a été un peu catapulté dans la chaise de Kirby, on a vu récemment qu'il joue moins de 10 minutes par match. Est-ce que, pas nécessairement aujourd'hui, mais dans les prochains mois, pour vous, ce serait peut-être une priorité d'amener un joueur de centre à l'équipe, de greffer un attaquant supplémentaire à l'équipe?
Écoute, comme j'ai dit à Eric, on n'est pas à un point où on croit qu'on a bâti l'équipe capable de faire comme réaliser nos objectifs. Alors, on a du travail à faire sur cette, mais je ne pourrais pas vous dire aujourd'hui exactement comment on va le faire.
Si je peux me permettre, le gros ajout de cette semaine, c'est la signature de Jake Evans, au fond. On a compris que les négociations avaient débouché un peu à la dernière minute, mais je pense que des deux côtés, vous êtes heureux d'en entendre. Quel est le niveau de respect que vous portez à Jake Evans pour la façon dont tout ça s'est déroulé?
Oui, Jake c'est un bon joueur de hockey, mais c'est un très bon personne aussi. Puis c'est ça qui est très aimé dans la chambre, mais dans l'organisation complète. Alors, on a toujours gardé les lignes de communication ouvertes, même quand on était à un point où on ne savait pas si on était en mesure de s'entendre sur un contrat. On a continué à communiquer, écoute, si on t'échange, voici les équipes qui pourraient être intéressées, des choses comme ça. Mais aux dernières minutes, je pense que les deux côtés on a essayé une autre fois de dire, avant de prendre une décision, on a eu une autre discussion, puis ça déboulé, on dit? Oui, ça a déboulé de là. Ouais.
Alexandre.
Salut, Alexandre.
Pour rebondir un peu sur Kirby Dach, quand vous êtes allé chercher, le plan semblait assez clair d'en faire le joueur de centre, probablement le deuxième joueur de centre de cette équipe-là. Est-ce qu'aujourd'hui, vous étiez en quête de réponse cette saison, est-ce que vous avez votre réponse par rapport à ça? Est-ce que Kirby Dach peut encore être le centre de deuxième trio de votre équipe?
Je peux pas. On n'était jamais prêt. Que c'était une blessure. On est allé chercher Kirby pour être un bon joueur pour nous. Je pense qu'il y a une bonne partie de la première année qui a joué avec nous. Il a joué à l'aile avec Nick puis Cole. Après ça, on l'a mis au centre. Puis je pense dans la phase fin de cette saison 2023, il a très bien débrûlé au centre. Cette année, c'est sûr qu'il revenait d'une blessure. Puis Kirby a beaucoup d'attentes pour lui aussi. Alors, souvent avec des joueurs, quand tu arrives, tu as des attentes, tu pars pas de la manière que tu aimerais partir de la saison. On parle beaucoup de la pression dans un marché comme Montréal, mais j'ai toujours cru qu'il y a beaucoup de pression pour ces joueurs comme Kirby qui viennent de eux-mêmes. Puis quand ça ne va pas de la propre manière, on dit en anglais snowball, un peu, boule de neige. On l'a vu avec Andy l'année d'avant, où ça n'allait pas. Tout ce qu'il a essayé ne fonctionnait pas, puis il est revenu cette année, puis c'est parti sur le bon chemin. Puis date Andy, même avec les blessures qu'il a connues cette année, il a eu une très bonne saison. Même Jake Evans, ça fait 2 ans, il avait de misère, il a scoré 2 buts en 54 games. Puis alors, écoute, Kirby est malchanceux au niveau de ses blessures. Je sens vraiment pour lui. Je ne suis pas prêt à dire de quoi sur Kirby. On va voir. Faut qu'on voit comment il va guérir de la blessure, puis comment ça va avoir un effet sur son jeu dans le futur.
Lui donner encore du temps pour avoir la.
Écoute, on veut améliorer l'équipe. Que Kirby a eu une bonne saison ou pas, on veut continuer à essayer d'améliorer l'équipe. C'est sûr que ça devient un inconnu. Puis on va dans l'été avec moins d'informations qu'on aimerait avoir, mais c'est la vie dans le monde précédent d'hockey, il y a toujours des blessures.
Bonjour, Vince. To go back to Jake Evans and him just saying he wants to be part of the process here, he wants to be part of the future. How big of a role does Martin Staios play in this buy-in, in this desire to fight with this group?
I think he plays a big role. If we look at our team from the day that he got here, I mean, that first year we were out of the playoffs, right? For the most part. I mean, I guess not mathematically speaking, but he came in and there was an immediate energy that came with him that I think the players felt. And I've heard him say several times, in order to be a good coach, you have to be a good salesman. You have to be able to sell something to the players in terms of a vision. And he's been able to continue to do that. And I'm sure that as he's done that, the message has evolved. But ultimately, a good coach makes for a good locker room too, especially with a young team. Because in a sense, he ends up providing some of that leadership to the group. Whereas if you're on a veteran team, I think the coach can focus more on the X's and O's and the coaching and let that take care of itself. So Marty and the coaching staff as a whole have done a great job. I think they've created an environment where you can show up and work really hard and have fun. And I think in Jake's case, to his credit, he was able to kind of sit back and reflect, and I think he lived through a bunch of different emotions that I've lived through with players in the past as an agent, and we're thrilled at the end of the day Jake decided he wanted to stay here in Montreal, and we hope that that's a sign of things to come in the future, that this is seen as a place that people that want to go out and compete and play hockey and do it and have fun doing it, that this is a good place to come.
Fans have been very patient during this rebuild. There's going to be fans today upset you didn't do anything, especially the second line center position. What do you say to fans who are upset today?
There was an exchange, I guess, of second line centers. But if we're talking about trades for a second line center that's going to be part of a team going forward into the future, I don't know that there was that type of trade. Today, listen, we came in with an objective of being in the mix at the start of the season. I think we've met that objective. We didn't come into this season hoping to compete for a Stanley Cup. We didn't think we were ready for that. And we'll continue to try to improve this team. But when you're trade deadline isn't necessarily the time of the year where you're trying to improve your team, or not that you're trying, because we tried. We made a lot of calls, not necessarily on players that were rumored to be available in trades, but just spitballing with teams on all kinds of different things to see if we could find a way to improve our team, and that could be, via trading something that we're long in, be it draft picks or positional for something where we felt we could use extra support in. But we're going to continue to push forward, Stu, and try to do this. And I think most fans know that the rebuild isn't something that's going to happen overnight. And listen, we're happy where we are, but we're not satisfied.
Well, Craig, maybe if you could just give us a sense of, assuming you have nothing in the hopper or anything along those lines, just what today was like for you and your group.
It's a little different than last year, obviously, and where we are, but it's a good thing because, we believe in the team just from the beginning of the year. We made a trade with Philly, and we did it earlier. I think where team's doing it right now, we jumped ahead of it a little bit and it made sense to us. Today we just, you talk to teams, was there something that made us better? And, in the long term too. Today and long term, it just wasn't there. So, we feel good with the team and we believe in the group, and they believe in each other, which is great.
Were you close on anything? Did you think you had something?
Not, talking back and forth, but then when some things don't go your way, then it kind of takes other things out of the line, so you just kind of see if there's something that makes sense. But really, just for us, we feel like this group has done a great job, and we expect them. They're tight. You see them in the locker room, you see them together, and they believe we're going to do it right from day one in training camp. And now, we're going to see how they do down the stretch.
You had kind of said you'd like to kind of maybe add a little here, a little there. Were the prices just too high this time of year?
They're pretty high. They were pretty high, but. It's weird because I think so many teams are so close and in it that maybe the prices were a little bit higher this year. There wasn't as many people selling, and like I said, you always want to help your team. You always want to give them that boost, but maybe the best thing for us is we did it early, and now we can just, now that this is over, the team can go. And we had maybe one of the toughest road trips I've seen, and for them to come away at 500 win points, it was good. Now you gotta start winning some games down the stretch, though.
Craig, what were the conversations like about retention and using that cap space of yours?
Wanted to do that. A few teams want to do 2-year retention earlier, and 2-year retention's tough. We talked about it, but that just didn't make sense for us. And we were hoping to, if we could do a 1-year retention, we were all in, and I don't think we saw one retention by a third party today. So, the cap has been going up, where those deals were really lucrative and good in the past. Just they weren't there today, even though we wanted to do it and we were ready to do it. The 2 years just didn't make sense to us.
You mentioned just how close knit this group is. How much does that play into things that come up today, and just making sure that is a priority?
Yeah, the priority is what the guys feel in the group, and you talk to them even when we're here in the hotel. They still believe themselves before the game. After the game, disappointed not getting the 2 points, against a very, very good team, but they believe, hey, this team can do it and this group can do it. So, maybe in their minds, maybe they want something, maybe they don't want anything, because they do believe in each other and they believe it. And now they can put all this behind them and just go out and play against Montreal tomorrow.